In part 2 of How to Machine Knit the Striped Square Afghan, we will build on the basic techniques introduced in part 1. We'll show you how to knit panel B. This joining panel is worked twice to complete the Afghan and leaves minimal finishing. When the Afghan comes off the machine, there are only 3 stitches in each corner to sew and a few yarn tails at the center. Set the carriage the same as for panel A. The stitch size is 8.1 and the left Russell lever is set to knit and the right Russell lever is set to hold. Move the carriage off to the left as that is where we will start. Once panel B is started properly, you just build on it from there and keep repeating. Let's review. In part 1 I showed you how to make the 2 panel A's. At the apex of each of these triangles we have our marked slip knots. As we made the panels, we also noted the rows on which we changed colors, and we also know that the short rows start every 20 rows, beginning when the row counter equals 10, 30, 50, and so on. We will be watching the row counter throughout panel B to place the color changes and work the short rows accurately. Refer to part 1 for specifics on making the color changes. In part 2, however, our focus will be joining the panels and making the necessary changes to needle alignment for both the stitch pattern and short rows. Turn both A panels so the right sides face the machine and point the apex of each triangle toward the center. I find the 2 markers and I pull those loops out a little bit. And then I insert my needle or my transfer tool right under it, and I'm putting it on the needle 1 left of 0. Then with my feet I form a slip knot with my feeder yarn, pull up the needle on the right of 0 and put it on that needle. Now I'm going to return to the one with the slip knot, with the 2 slip knots, and I'm going to knit that stitch off, just like I did when I did the other panel. Then I'm pulling up the 3rd needle to the left, and I'm E-wrapping it. At this point, I'm going to add a little tension and thread my carriage. Pull out a 2nd needle on the right. On that needle, return to the panel A on the right side and lift the first edge loop with your transfer tool and place it on the needle. When hanging stitches on this panel, you will always be working on the side opposite the carriage. Return all the needles to upper working position in preparation for arranging the needles. As before, when you work from left to right, some of the needles need to be put into hold position. When working panel B, the first 2 needles on the right will always be in work position on rows going from left to right. Using this as a guide, push every other needle into hold position. On this row, it is only 1 needle, but it will grow quickly as the rows are knit. Add a little tension on the knitting and knit 1 row to the right. On the left edge, we are going to start picking up stitches. With the transfer tool, lift the first long loop along the edge of panel A on the left and place it on a new needle. The needle can come all the way out or be left in any work position, since all the needles will be knit going from right to left. Knit 1 row. Now return to the right side and with the transfer tool, lift the next long loop on the edge of the right panel A onto a new needle, leaving it in upper work position. Leaving the end 2 needles on the right in work position or upper work position, push every other needle into hold. Knit 1 row. Return to the left edge and hang the next loop from the left panel A to a new needle. Knit 1 row. You will be going back and forth like this, making sure to move stitches into hold position with the right 2 needles in working position as the guide. As a double check, the last needle on the left will always be in work position or upper work position. Continue like this until row counter equals 10. As before, we begin the 4 short rows on row 10. You want to keep your eye on these outer 3 stitches. On the first short row, the outer stitches go in and the next 2 stay back. Then every other one from there. I'm hand selecting this because my needle pusher is too big to fit in here. Okay, so now I set my both levers to hold position and knit 1 row. On the second short row, I bring the second needle into work. And I push all the ones in the middle back in to upper work position. Now I bring the third needle from the edge, so all 3 end needles are in hold. And I bring up every other needle into fold. Now the fourth row is the one where we return everything back to normal. So this one we're going to wrap the second needle. We're going to, on the left, we're going to put the 2 second needles, the second and third needle from the edge into upper work position. And on the right, we're putting only 1 on the left into upper work position. And then everything in between into upper work position. And we're going to come back across. That concludes our short rows. However, on this row you still have to do a little bit of maneuvering because you got to bring everything back into work. So, on the right, add a new needle and hang the adjacent loop from panel 1. Return the 2 hold stitches on the right to upper working position. Normally there would be only 2 needles on the right in upper working position or working position, like so. Using the third needle as a guide, push every other needle into hold position. On the left, return the end stitch to upper work position. Then return to the third needle on the right. This is the exception. Because it has the wrapped stitches on it, they must knit off on the next row. So push it back into upper work position. This configuration with 4 needles on the right in work position or upper work position and 1 on the left will occur after each set of short rows on panel B. Now continue going back and forth, hanging a loop on a new needle on the side opposite the carriage. Watch your row counter and make sure to change colors and work short rows on the same rows as panel A. Once all the needles on the panel are in work, or you've reached the desired width, change the right rustle lever to knit and knit the last row from left to right. Work the half cable edging as described in part 1 to finish panel B. At each corner, you will find a 6-row loop at the beginning of the border and a little tab with 6 rows on the last 3 stitches of the adjacent panel. To finish the corner, we will attach the end of the open stitches to the back of the 6-row loop. Using the yarn tail, slip the open stitches from the stitch holder onto the yarn tail to keep them from running. Count up 4 rows on the closed loop side and hold the stitches on the yarn tail up against it. The right side of the stitches should be against the wrong side of the closed loop. Whip stitch into place. Then turn the work to the right side and stitch down once again. I also like to stitch the side edges of the beginning and ending loops together just a little to reduce the size of the opening. Finish by weaving in the end. Repeat this for each corner. At the center of the afghan, weave in the yarn tails that begin each of the panels. Be particularly careful of the slip knots that have the stitch markers, as these could be easily pulled apart if not securely fastened. We've successfully finished the Striped Square Afghan. In Part 3, I'll show you the best way to divvy up and combine even the most unlikely leftover yarns and create a gorgeous Afghan. If you would like more videos like this, please subscribe and ring the bell for future notifications. Happy machine knitting!